decided to...
After the release of Nobody 2, director Timo Giganto has started hinting at where the series could go next, and his ideas are sparking a lot of conversation. The Nobody franchise, which follows Hutch Mansell, an ordinary-looking dad who just so happens to be an incredibly skilled assassin, has turned into one of the most surprising and entertaining action series in recent years. With Bob Odenkirk leading the charge, the story has struck a balance between brutal action and relatable family drama. Because of that, Nobody 2 managed to pull in some solid praise, even earning a 76% score on Rotten Tomatoes. So now that the second film has landed, people naturally want to know what's next. There wasn't a post-credit scene at the end of Nobody 2, which usually hints at a sequel, but that hasn't slowed down the speculation. Odenkirk himself has already shared that he's been thinking about what Nobody 3 could look like. He seems excited to dig deeper into the Mansell family's future and even expand their roles. But it's not just Odenkirk who's brimming with ideas. Giganto has been talking about possible directions, and some of them are surprisingly dark. During an interview with Screen Rant's Joe Deckelmeyer, Giganto revealed that the third movie doesn't have to stick to the same tone as the first two. In fact, he went as far as to say the franchise could go completely Breaking Bad. His pitch was pretty intense. Imagine Hutch sitting alone in a desert trailer park, fully bearded, shotgun in hand, after his wife and kids have left him. That would be a major shift, because instead of being about a guy trying to protect his family, it would suddenly focus on a man who's lost everything. Even Odenkirk admitted that sounded really dark. But Giganto didn't stop there. He also said there's another way they could go, which would involve Hutch's family becoming even more active in the action. Becca could have her own storyline if Hutch went missing, while Brady, their son, is now old enough to start showing his own skills. This approach would push the series into a full-blown family adventure, where all of them are caught up in dangerous missions. For Giganto, that flexibility is exciting because it means the story could bend in different directions without losing its heart. His comments put the franchise at an interesting crossroads. Nobody 2 had already hinted at Becca and Brady stepping into bigger roles, and if Nobody 3 doubled down on that, it could become a full ensemble action saga. That would set it apart even more from John Wick, which shares a similar DNA but keeps the focus squarely on one man. On the other hand, the darker vision, the Breaking Bad-style downfall, would push Hutch into new territory, showing what happens when the weight of his choices finally crushes him. Both routes are intriguing because they open up so many possibilities for character growth. What makes this so fun to think about is the balance the franchise has already managed to strike. Hutch isn't just another slick action hero, he's a guy torn between two worlds, his suburban family life and his violent past. Nobody works so well because it doesn't just serve up wild fight scenes, it also grounds those scenes in Hutch's personal struggles. That's why the Breaking Bad-style pitch has some bite to it. It would put Hutch's internal conflict front and center in a way we haven't seen before. Still, the family ensemble option has its own appeal. Nobody 2 ended in a way that made fans wonder what role Becca and Brady could play going forward, and seeing them jump into the action could be a blast. It would also give the franchise legs beyond just a trilogy, because audiences would be invested in the Mansells as a whole, not just Hutch. And with Odenkirk and Giganto tossing around so many creative ideas, it's pretty clear that Nobody has room to grow in multiple directions. Now, Odenkirk has also chimed in with his own vision for the future. In another interview, he explained why the franchise means so much to him and how he imagines it evolving. He mentioned that he has notions for both Nobody 3 and 4. For him, the heart of the series isn't just about action, it's about the journey of a family. He wants to explore the universal tensions that families feel and then ramp them up into these larger-than-life cinematic explosions. At the same time, he's fascinated by themes like fathers and sons, and people trying to control their anger but failing. In his mind, those are things you can follow across multiple chapters, almost like watching a family saga unfold. This perspective lines up with how Nobody has always been different from other action flicks. The first movie ended up by setting up a sequel, with Hutch walking free after a mysterious phone call during his interrogation. It also teased an adventure with Harry and David, who were last seen carrying guns and heading off somewhere, but those threads weren't really addressed in Nobody 2. That leaves the door wide open for more storytelling, because there are still unanswered questions and dangling plot points. The fact that Odenkirk is so invested in continuing the series is a good sign for fans. Nobody 2 didn't include a post-credit tease like the first one did, but the strong reception and the cast's enthusiasm suggest there's still plenty left to explore. The franchise has already carved out a place for itself in the action genre with its mix of dark humor, gritty fights, and Odenkirk's everyman energy. So even though the story could go in wildly different directions, it feels like the creative team is determined to keep pushing the boundaries. Another thing to consider is the larger action movie landscape. John Wick has been dominating that space for years, but now it's moving into spin-offs and side projects without Keanu Reeves at the center. That creates a bit of a gap, and nobody could step in to fill it. With Derek Kolstad, the same writer behind John Wick, also penning the Nobody scripts, the DNA is already there. What's different is Hutch's character. He's less mythic and more relatable, which could give the series its own lasting identity. If the franchise does continue, it could be fascinating to see Odenkirk's idea of following the Mansell family through different chapters of their lives. Instead of simply repeating the one-man army formula, it could evolve into a story that mixes operatic action with personal generational struggles. That kind of direction would not only keep fans engaged, but also give the series more longevity than most action trilogies. Although Nobody 2's ending didn't push heavily toward a sequel, the seeds are definitely there. With both the director and star throwing around such ambitious ideas, it feels like the story of Hutch Mansell is far from over. Whether it's the bleak desert exile version or the action-packed family ensemble, the franchise has options, and whichever path it takes, fans will probably be lining up to see where it goes. So, in the end, Nobody stands at a really exciting point. The second film proved the first wasn't just a fluke, and now the creative team has a chance to take the franchise in bold, new directions. It could lean into the raw darkness of a man unraveling, or it could expand into the chaotic, dangerous adventures of an entire family. Either way, it's refreshing to see a series that isn't content to play it safe. And with Odenkirk so passionate about the story, the odds of more movies feel pretty strong. Well, that's it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because we'll be covering more updates on this soon and other exciting upcoming movies and series. We'll see you next time.